Yeah, so I think there's tremendous value for us to continue looking at the venue theme UI based on some of the feedback that James collected this week. And so it was a bit of a tight race between this and some of the PHP work. But I think based on what we've got here, I think we've got a work cut out for us to do a couple things. And so in terms of agenda for today, I had 3 basic ideas, and I'm certainly open to everyone's feedback on where we get started. So first of all, I want to come back to the homepage, the venue homepage around CMS. I know we made a lot of good progress last week on it with Art. Some parts were rushed a bit, and so I want to make sure that Art has a good understanding of that. And so if it's worth a quick review on that, I'm willing to spend a few minutes on that if you guys are okay with that. The second piece is checkout. And so as we've moved into the scenario-based approach to our work, which I can share with you here in just a second, checkout is paramount. And so what you're going to see on Monday's demo at the usual time is as a full completed checkout. You guys have seen the basics of it. It's been coming together in a very iterative fashion. But Jimmy, before he left, checked in what is going to give us a true Magento order. And so we're excited to share with you that on Monday. But with anything, there were some trade-offs made along the way in this kind of minimal viable approach. The cart and checkout that you've seen on the right came in as a drawer, and the order complete and the confirmation came in as a drawer. All things that are still successful to get things done, but there's work there's work to actually show the true forms of each of those, all of which have actually been designed already by Samya, and are just stories to be groomed, stories for us to kind of take a look at as a team. So in the interest of kind of going a little bit more depth on that one, because it is the most understood, I think we can cover some portions of that, which might be interesting. And then the third part of the agenda would be anything around developer experience, and I think that has a lot to do with it has a lot to do with the attendees we have today. I think with every grooming, our attendees shift from one to another. Are we going to be more front-end focused? Are we going to be more PHP focused? And so we can cater based on that. I know, Alex, you've been chomping at the bit and been working with the Web API folks. Actually, it looks like you hosted recently a community session, which is pretty exciting as well. But if there's aspects of that we can cover, we've got plenty of work to go around in that. And so with that, and of course with James's direction, we can go a little bit deeper on developer experience if we like it, and look at a couple stories there. So that was that's the intent, and that was the plan for today's grooming. Again, based on the feedback we've got this week, based on kind of where we left off last week, which is around the homepage, and of course leaving room for anything else. So with that in mind, are there any questions or comments before we get started? That sounds great.
Yay!
All right, very good. Excellent. So Art, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we do have the stories here for some of the components on the homepage. We can go through these one by one, which would be one way of going about it. But in terms of kind of where we left off with your understanding of those, did you feel like we left that in a good place for you to get started? Did you think of anything afterwards in terms of how we're breaking down things like product gallery and other aspects of the homepage for you to get going, or simply put, is this sufficient? Do you think that we're in good shape here?
From my side, according to this and all other, let's say, homepage components, tickets, all good. I have to start to work on it. That's it.
Good. And I was going to ask you about that. And so, Rowan, just to give you a little backstory, Art has been a hero lately for us and has done a recent pull request this week on the homepage. And so he's got the basics of that up. We're doing some merging and reviewing now. And so we're hoping, cross our fingers, that also will be part of Monday's demo. But, we've got some work to do today on that one. But Art has been working closely with the team in Slack and pulling a lot of that together. And so the question I'm then going to have for Art is for some of this kind of next level work on the homepage, again, as we look at components like the product gallery, like these others, are these things that you think you can start looking at next week in terms of availability? So we're thinking a little bit around Sprint 22, which starts next week. Are there aspects of this that you think you can begin working on, or too early to tell based on your availability?
No, for sure. Next week, I can start to with these tickets that we already defined. So,
Okay, perfect.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Well, I'd suggest then maybe we start off with the product slider. I think we identify the dependency between the product slider and the product gallery, of one kind of being a subset of the other, but in the spirit of kind of going iterative, starting small, building around it. Know that let's maybe start off with and tag 162 here with the intent of working on it next sprint, but know that the full gallery is going to come probably right afterwards. Again, at a pace and a sequence that makes sense for you on that one. So I'll go ahead for the purposes of at least of this, since we're here, I'm going to tag this one for sprint 22, which begins on Monday, and then we'll shuffle this and get this in for the beginnings of that on Monday. So that's super helpful. Cool. All right, so then let's switch gears here then to checkout. Again, I think we've got a good cue here for what we want to do on the home page. The checkout is next, and again, for those who saw the demo, I think what I'd like to do is to build off of this epic here, which is the full checkout experience for Venya. And I think what we've done nicely here is to set up a very minimal form. Things that are traditionally, again, right rail kind of sliding components, very minimal, but still allow you to create a completed order confirmation. So what I'd like to suggest are a series of improvements that basically make the static editable. So shipping addresses, editable, potentially expansion for multiple payments, things that were just baked in assumptions that we'd like to expand on a little bit further. Some of which, of course, like payments, will be much more involved than others. But it's important for us to start carving this out, because ultimately we've got this phased in a way that I think allows us to build from that. So does that sound good? Perfect. All right. Here, let me do this real quick, just to give you guys a little bit of color, because we often have people in and out of this with different contexts. So I'm going to share my full screen here, give you guys an idea of what we're looking at. So this is the phases we're looking at for the whole shopping experience. And so if you look at the full phases, we've done the basics of phase 0, which you see here, right? And so when we talk about shipping address, we're talking about payment, login account. Again, at its very highest level, we're going to be breaking down the epic in these various ways. Xiaomi has done a nice job for my account. We're probably not ready yet for stories. I mean, we kind of know what it looks like, but for the purposes of today's grooming, we'll likely start tackling that next week. But we're going to be doing things around the shipping address and method as we evolve from phase 0 into 1, eventually around phase 2, which we're considering our MVP. And then, if we get more contribution from the community, we're hoping to get into areas like wish lists, subscriptions, and other areas that are important, but maybe not as important as a complete checkout. So again, this may be a repeat for some folks, but I do want to kind of put this out there to show our thinking and how this is coming together in an iterative format. Any questions about this before we go to the story again? I just thought this would be useful.
Yep, all good.
Cool. All right, so let's switch gears then. So let's take a look at the checkout experience. We're going to, again, build this off of the epic here that is the checkout experience. As you guys know, the first one takes a little bit of work, and then we get into kind of a repeat way of kind of copy, paste, and modify. And so let's take a look at the epic that we have here for checkout experience. Again, this is pretty basic. Thank you, ZenHub. And so we want to have the basics of a checkout experience. And so we're going to build off of this epic, and then we're going to add essentially a story off of this. Again, open to feedback on this one, but basically, implement this one. Let's start off with implement. Sorry. Editable shipping address for checkout. I know we've looked at this a little bit, but I really want to formalize this in a way that it gets put into what's being done. I know Jimmy had started off with that. So with this one, it is an other, because it's really a feature. Description, so as a shopper, again, I want to, let's see here, create an order.
I don't know. People aren't.
Yeah, I think.
Oh,
you need to switch.
Sorry about that.
You need to switch to the screen that has
the window.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I did full desktop too.
Oh, really?
All right, we'll try that again. You guys are being so polite. I'm sitting there typing here. Very good. So, we're going to start off with this one. So implement editable shipping address for checkout. So for this one, again, this is going to affect the Venya theme itself. It is a feature, so we're going to mark that as other. And then as a shopper, I want to use an actual address for shipment when making a purchase on Venya, so that I can complete my order. It's probably better ways to do that, but I think the idea is, again, the net of this is I want to be able to edit again where the current state of the address, which is in that right rail from the demo. I want to be able to actually edit that using some of the new form fields work that Jimmy has put together. So the expected results, and so for this one, again, in terms of acceptance criteria, we'll always start off with test and documentation as appropriate. And then with this one, we also want to implementation of or updates to address shipping in checkout using new form field components. Let's see what else. And that's it. I mean, if it's a scenario based, we basically want to use our real address for this one so we can complete an order. That's in its basic form. Of course, there's always some wordsmithing can be done. That's essentially what we want to do. In terms of tasks themselves, and I think this is where I want to get a little bit of help on this one. In terms of tasks themselves, I mean, we can talk about the components themselves. We can talk about the existence and the modification of the checkout. But what else? How should we break this? How should we break this up in terms of building off of the existing experience?
Well, first of all, we need to just as a plain old acceptance criterion.
Yep.
We need to say that it's possible to fill out an address for multiple countries. Some of the people who are working on this will not know how to formulate United States zip codes, so we cannot afford to be completely national-centric about this. So acceptance criteria, all types of international address, or most types of international address are supported.
Yep. Yeah, I think we can mimic how it's at least is afforded in M2, which is more global, I think, than some of the UX pieces. So
that's right.
Yep.
Inputs are validated for required fields, and validation messages appear. I don't know. I don't think we should specify whether they're on submit or on tab out or whatever. I think you go ahead and implement, and we'll iterate. So validation messages appear visibly and indicate required fields and required format.
I'm thinking. I think that covers it. Even in error messages, it would include success message. So I just did that. So.
Yeah, and I would say part of the AC too, given that we've worked with mock data in the past, is that entered shipping address is then stored in quote via REST API.
Yep. Yep. Cool.
Any objections to that, or concerns about that, or clarifications?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Should we take care of this implementation about the settings of Magento? So the usual, because it's my usual question. So we have the countries list, which are available for the checkout. We have amount of street lines. We have is the region is available for this website or store view. Should we take care of this?
We want to support those things, and we can only support them insofar as the REST API supports them. So if there's no way to access the list of countries in REST, then our MVP right now would include simply hard coding countries based on prior knowledge, and then perhaps making that hard coded list configurable at build time. And then at build time, you would do what's necessary to integrate with Magento and find out what the country list is.
I can tell here that, for example, we're working now on GraphQL on a configuration fields getting from Magento, which are generally those countries list, region, and so on.
Hey, we know we need that config API.
There you go.
So, and that's first part is already merged, and second one is extended API is coming. So
Fantastic.
I would say that we can use those calls from GraphQL for getting the config data.
Awesome.
Awesome. So we switch REST to GraphQL.
Yeah.
Should we get excited? All right. Cool. That's great.
Could I make a request for the autocomplete attributes to ensure that those are added on the various input fields?
Great. That is a great baseline requirement.
Yep.
Is that autocomplete? So emitted HTML elements have appropriate attributes for, and I'm going to add to this list is autocompletion.
Yep.
And then accessible labels and what am I missing? And role, yeah, accessible labels and roles. You can say roles because it can be commutable into Zarya. And then and I think these things need to be stylable, and I think that's fundamental. We have a generic form concepts are going to emerge, and you need to be able to reach into them and style them. So, yeah. Stylable form fields with exposed class names, which is part of the best practice for PWA Studio components.
Is the word stylable?
Stylable. I don't know. I guess I'd put it yeah.
We could always add a dictionary.
Stylability.
No, when in doubt, I just add a hyphen in there wherever it seems like it could work.
It's a good hack.
Yep.
There you go.
I like to use an en dash just to get a little bit of extra oomph.
Yep.
Okay, so
this is getting big.
yeah, I mean, but I think these are things that are really about quality and definition of done.
Oh yeah, I agree.
It's good to have them in acceptance criteria for the initial story, so let's have them there.
Yep. Agreed. So I think the nature of this, I don't think it's a bad thing, is becoming an epic that's going to set up things that is. I mean, this is more than probably a sprint worth of work at this point, I would say.
No, I think you can get MVP done in a sprint. The things that we're talking about here, like when Rowan says autocomplete attributes, that's literally just like one piece of text that you add to every component that you write in.
Oh, okay.
You do it in code review. Autocomplete is not like pull in something that autocompletes out of the API call. This is just tell the browser that they're allowed to fill in saved shipping addresses.
Oh, got it. So it's browser level auto.
Yeah, so it's really not that bad, but I think that we should say it's got to implement some aspect. It's got to, just implement some of the VINIA visual concept. So we're going to attach a comp to this.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Sami is out, so we can't pull up that comp and identify it super easily unless either of you guys have like the Envision facility to do that.
You mean this one right here?
Did we already look at it and I missed that?
We didn't. So I had this just in case we needed it.
Yeah, let's look at it. Boom. All right. Now let's blow everyone's minds with a form on the web. That obviously there are a lot of questions to answer here. That's why it's an MVP.
Yeah.
So the styling cues that you can take are that it's a drawer. It comes from below.
And the mobile, and this is the mobile design. So
yeah, and then all other designs are secondary.
Yep.
This is a drawer. It comes from below. You fully justify the fields. Obviously, there must be some way to select country so that the rest of the fields adjust in their labels and validation states, so that for Rowan you would get like a historic county field and like a for Art. Where are you located?
Frankfurt.
Yeah. So, we would get like, I don't know, fiefdom? Europe is weird. So yeah, we'd obviously adjust the address fields based on what is there. So you guys already are familiar with how the data population functions in Magento, as Alex, as you've observed. So this to me seems like it's doable in a sprint. It's probably an 8-pointer to be very safe. But we don't need, for instance, to address all possible types of client-side validation. We don't need to address the use case of multiple shipping addresses. I don't think we need to do anything fancy.
Yep, I think that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool. Let's finish this one out then, at least for the sake of this exercise. So tagging it for Venya. Assigning it, we can worry about that later unless anybody's feeling ambitious right now. Same thing with milestone. We'll worry about that during sprint planning. Make this a proper 8-pointer, which is just for those who are following along, is a full sprint of work. And then the epic itself is part of checkout. And then crossing our fingers, we're going to put this in, consider this for release 3. At the very least, we should consider that next. Again, for those who are following along, release 3 is lined up to quarter 3, and so we're in the middle of that. So hopefully we can get this done within the current release, and I think that's similar to what we anticipated. So cool, good stuff. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? This is really good feedback before we submit this. All right. Again, always hoping for a clone button on this. I should just submit that into the ZenHub team.
Yeah, we good.
Yes. Excellent. I'm going to put this at the top too, so don't forget.
Big stuff.
All right, cool. So let's take a look at payment then. So I think we got a sneak peek at what payment looks like from Samia. Again, some of the earlier work that she did. I think even being payment provider agnostic, I think we can create something that has the beginnings of what payment might be. I know there are the considerations for PayPal, and other considerations for Google Pay, all those things, but at least begin with what, and this may be something that comes later, but begins of what might credit card be when we come back around to that, and less so worried about the back end aspects of it, but maybe the front end, the scenario based approach of like, when we're ready for this, what might this look like? And so this one's going to be a little bit more abstract, but I think it's important to put this in here for the completion of our checkout scenarios, partially for the larger estimate itself, but also again to show us what's next and help us inform the rest. So that's what we're going to do next. All right, hold on just a sec. Shipping address. This is going to be an epic. I'm just going to throw that out there. Unless somebody is that adventurous and thinks they can get that done in a sprint. You guys tell me otherwise. All right. So as a shopper, I would like to use a credit or debit card when making a purchase on Venya, so that I can complete my order. In addition to, as you guys remember, the MVP, we're using a money order or check.
Okay. So what type of integration will this one use? Like what payment provider would be used?
I think that's what we talked about.
Yes, I think we have people on the call who can help us understand what is likely, what is possible. There's certainly clearly a strong preference from all of us to be able to implement the payment request API, both because that's part of what makes PWA special, is the ability to trust your device and the maker of the operating system, but also because it saves us the implementation of a lot of the parts of checkout.
Yep.
So
something that would be helpful for me to understand here is what's being exposed on the Magento side.
resale side? Like,
I'm sorry, there was some sort of crosstalk.
Oh, sorry. Is this?
No, you're good, Rowan. Go ahead and start again. I think it was somebody else.
What's
Yep.
being exposed on the Magento side?
Yes. So from the Magento side, are you getting information back as to what cards the merchant supports, what payment requests they support?
The configuration API that we've implemented, I guess, is probably where that would be.
Yep.
That be done, right, Alexander?
Yes, but we didn't put there yet any payment, shipment related information. So generally no sales related information.
Okay. Another possibility too is, because I think that's significant metadata on the quote object, that you could consider looking at the quote object in GraphQL, writing a module that extends the schema and adds that information to quotes because it's relevant in that context. It also may be different depending on the quote. So I think ultimately we'll probably want it to be there. Does that sound crazy?
No, so I think my point here would be that you can absolutely do like a form with the autocomplete attributes. You can very easily do the payment request API, but the utility of those is kind of tied on having that meta up front as to what those valid payment methods are before you present them to the user.
Yes. So very simply, getting payment methods at the API layer that are valid.
Yep. All right.
Again, we know that this is possible. The question is what the chosen strategy would be for us.
Yep.
We want to, take heed of the fact that this has to be done quickly. So what's the present way? I know that it's doable in REST, but what's the present way that we would prefer for it to be done? Just grab them from REST or try to integrate them into something else? With grabbing them from REST, what I'm concerned about, because it's the client side that's doing that, is I'm concerned about the security. Is that an admin-only REST API? And I actually don't have that in front of me because I don't have Swagger in front of me. So it sounds like there could be a spike on it and that would add some time.
Yeah, I mean, REST would be the most known, but I think it also sounds like there's some risk on that as well. So perhaps we can go in this direction, but then set, link a spike to understand the security of that.
Potentially, yeah. And another thing, our MVP includes the possibility of some configuration changes requiring a redeployment.
Yep.
We know, for instance, that